57-year-old male came with gross total painless hematuria of 2 days duration. He had a similar complaints 4 months back for 2 episodes. So you have a list of negative history, which is all negative except for this particular thing, and he's a non-smoker.
Right.
So when we go to the examination, the body habitus was normal, no pallor, no icterus, no lymphadenopathy, abdomen is soft, and rest everything is normal, grade 1 plus prostate from non-tender, non-nodular. So anything people want to discuss at this point, or should I go ahead?
Yeah, Abhishek, yes, sir is saying something.
No, please take over.
I mean, Abhishek, the history has been presented before you. So, are you okay with it? Anything you want to tell us?
Can I see the first slide, sir? Please. The slide with the history, sir. Sir, looking at the history, I would like to know whether the hematuria was associated with any clots, sir, or and then if it was associated with clots, the nature of the clots I would like to know.
No clots, Abhishek.
No clots, sir.
No clots.
Okay, sir. Sir, he has a dysuria and urgency, history of weight loss and fever. So, looking at the history, my differential diagnosis will be first. It will be urinary tract infection, sir. Second, it can be carcinoma bladder, and third will be BPH, benign enlargement of the prostate, and fourth will be CA, carcinoma of the prostate, sir.
Okay. I think that should be okay. I mean, there is one history of weight loss also.
Yes,
so
sir. So that points towards the carcinoma.
Fairly okay, yeah. And because dysuria is there, probably you have put UTI as the diagnosis.
And he has a fever also, sir, on and off for past 3 months.
Yeah, we had no clot, so that also can explain UTI in the history sake. Anish sir, any comment you have? I think then we go to examination.
Yes, sir. No lymphadenopathy.
Sir, Anish sir, we are not able to hear you. Sir, you are muted, sir. Anish sir, you are muted. Can you mute?
I think he has been muted by the host. So
No. Please,
Yes, sir.
Sir, history. Anything you want to ask? Any more?
Yeah.
Most of
Sir, I want to ask, sir.
Yeah.
Can I ask, sir? Sir,
Yes,
I just
please.
wanted to know hematuria because one of the most important things is whether it is painless or associated with pain.
No,
that will-
Good point.
It was specifically told it was painless.
Painless.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so now can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. So, in a 57-year-old presenting with gross hematuria, and there were actually 2 episodes. This one
Yes,
is fresh, but there were another one earlier.
Yes, sir.
And dysuria sometimes, can be misleading here.
Yes, sir.
So, in a case like this, I think when he is elderly, although there is no history of smoking and all,
Yes, sir.
we should keep the possibility of
Cancer,
CA
sir?
bladder.
Okay, sir.
Then we can keep a possibility of upper tract UTUC, upper
sir.
tract urinary cancer, urothelial cancer.
Okay, sir.
Then RCC also should come in because elderly people, we should have malignancies on the top.
Okay, sir.
And Abhishek said BPH and carcinoma prostate. So Abhishek,
Yes, sir.
BPH is always a diagnosis by exclusion.
Okay, sir.
You must remember,
Okay, sir.
we never say BPH in the active list of differential diagnosis. It's a priority. Always remember, BPH never leads to hematuria unless You have done investigations, you have done at least an ultrasound or CT, whatever extent you have to go, you have ruled out there is no other thing, then only we say that BPH is a cause. See a prostate, of course, you can put it somewhere down the line, right?
Okay, sir. Okay,
So the malignancies, then maybe see a prostate at the end, and of course UTI, because in this case there is dysuria. But this is not a classical picture of UTI as well, because they should have some maybe low grade or high grade fever. So dysuria may be misleading. That's what I am saying.
Okay, sir.
So if I had to give the differential diagnosis, I would put the malignancies, the 3 malignancies which I said, then UTI,
Okay,
then CA prostate. At BPH, I would not keep it, because it's a diagnosis by
exclusion. Okay, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Nothing specific in the examination part, sir.
Yes, sir.
That it was a grade 1 prostate, which is non-nodular.
So examination doesn't probably make you any wiser.
Yes, sir.
And I think we continue with the
Sir,
same diagnosis, clinical diagnosis as Dr. Anish sir has said. Abhishek,
Yes, sir.
I think you said something, but that's it, right? Okay.
Okay.
Other student was asking about painless hematuria. It's painless hematuria. So any comments he has on it?
So that's what, sir. If it is painless, definitely malignancy would come little higher on the
No,
differential.
sure. Any comments now after the examination?
Sir,
After exam.
I agree with
after,
this, sir. We can proceed.
after digital rectal examination, where grade 1 prostate, which is firm non-nodular, it can help us in ruling out the carcinoma prostate as from the DD.
So if I just take the discussion what sir explained you right now, there were 4 primary clinical diagnosis DDs after the examination. So on basis of your say examination,
Yes,
how
sir.
you will say reorganize it or say exclude each?
Sir, as per
One of them you were talking something, say prostate you said. That was our 4th diagnosis.
yes, sir.
So prostate is a DRE, Enelton normal grade 1 prostate firm. This is a totally normal prostate.
Yes, sir.
So that goes technically a little side.
Sir, as it
So-
was a painless hematuria, I would keep CA bladder, sir. Then
Absolutely.
and then RCC. After that, upper tract.
RCC causing hematuria means it should be
associated with clots,
technically and usually palpable in the general examination or systemic examination. If not, it is a small mass directly involving the PCS at some point.
Okay, sir.
But then a common thing in RCC is a hematuria is a late triad presentation. Commonly. I'm not saying uncommonly. Smaller renal masses can also bleed.
Okay, sir.
RCCs, but commonly.
Okay.
So a bladder again and upper tract as sir has said, probably they come up again.
Okay, sir.
I think, should we go ahead?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
There are basic investigations. Only thing you need to note here is that there have been plenty persons, and also creatinine is 1.44, where the normal for us is 1.3.
1.2.
1.3 is normal for us. Rest all TLC and all everything is normal.
So this page is open to you. Any comments?
Sir, he had a drop in hemoglobin, sir, from 11.5 to 9.7, again, which it has picked up to 11.2. Other than that, creatinine is elevated, sir, 1.4.
Slightly elevated, 1.44 across 1.3.
Yes, sir. And then urine routine is showing, is suggestive of urinary tract infection, where the culture confirms it with E. coli bacteria, sir.
Absolutely.
So
anything you want more, you can ask. I mean, or you can ask. What would you have done? I should ask the. I'm sorry, I'm saying this. Can I get your name again?
Abhishek, sir.
Abhishek.
Abhishek and
Abhik.
Abhik, sir.
Abhik. Okay.
Abhik Devnath.
Yeah. Abhik. So this is okay for you? You would ask anything more?
Sir, because the creat is high and there is
Yes.
a history of hematuria, at least we can, since culture is positive, cystoscopy we can defer as of now. After treating the culture, we can do, but upper tract imaging we should. I want to ask.
So, Abhik, when you say in the exam, then you have used two statements. You said cystoscopy, I will defer. So, my suggestion is don't put such statements, right? Because that's a negative statement, and then examiner may drag you in another direction. Okay. So we should talk only what we are trying to do. And the second statement which you made was, what was the second statement? Upper tract imaging. That is an umbrella statement again, right? So you should be specific right from the first word. I'm sure you want to do an ultrasound here,
Sir, next.
because E. coli has come. So you are thinking probably it is all UTI, but at least you want to rule out the malignancy as we have suspected, because the two things can be associated. So be specific and say ultrasound, right?
So this patient was treated appropriately with appropriate antibiotics for a week. The ultrasound was done at the start of the investigation, but the cytology was done once the treatment was after the UTI was treated.
So that is the ultrasound report in front of you. Large irregular polypoid,
4 centimeter mass, sir.
heteroechoic lesion of size 5 by 4 centimeters arising from base of bladder and going towards the right lateral wall. Right hydronephrosis seen mild. Prostate grade 2. So what information it gives you?
Yes, sir, it give.
तो भी सुन सकते हैं.
Sir, it's a mass of 5 to 4 centimeters rising from the base of the bladder and extending into the right lateral wall. Right hydronephrosis may suggest obstruction of right ureteric orifice, sir.
So obstruction because of?
Sir, it can be a mass obstructing the ureteric orifice or invading the orifice, or any lymphadenopathy compressing the right lower ureter, causing the hydronephrosis, sir.
And the main important thing is you should say that it could be the muscle invasion.
Muscle invasion.
Right?
Yes,
Yeah, yeah. So the lymph node compressing is less likely.
Yes, sir.
The mass itself compressing is also less likely.
Less like, okay, sir.
It is the muscle invasion.
Muscle invasion.
Yeah. So and actually, if there is hydroureter nephrosis on the ipsilateral side, it is taken as a by and large taken. Sometimes it may be fallacious, but by and large taken as a sign of muscle.
It is an indirect sign of muscle invasion.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Abhishek, just to push you a little ahead on the same scenarios or same investigations which we have got right now.
Okay,
We
sir.
got the CBC, we got the urine routine, we got the sonography.
Okay, sir.
So if you remember the history, I think this patient had no comorbidity.
No, sir. Nothing, sir.
At all. So why, just a little different from CA bladder, but why do you think the creatinine is high?
Sir, it could have been because of associated infection, sir. Because he had a culture positive, he was a culture positive, so it could have been because of that. Or
Right.
and second thing.
So usually with one kidney normal, I mean absolutely normal. Right side also there is mild hydronephrosis.
Mild hydronephrosis.
So creatinine should not be. So it looks like a prerenal cause with a UTI, and
Yes,
maybe some relation to maybe his hydration level might be there.
Okay,
So these are some of the things. If had it been gross hydronephrosis, mild, say moderate hydronephrosis, then still we expect
then
the
it
other
could-
kidney is totally normal. If there had been no infection, sometimes the creatinine, does not, sometimes doesn't change. If the other kidney is bang normal and there are no comorbidities.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, we go ahead.
We go ahead. I think next time you direct the questions to Abhik. So that
Based on these two investigations, what would you do next? We have got a large mass in the bladder, and we have got right mild hydronephrosis. We have got a creatinine of 1.44 and UTI treated.
Abhik, you will take this question.
Abhik, we are asking you actually.
Sir, in view of
There is a urine cytology which is suspicious of malignancy.
yes, sir. In view of large
I can't see you, Abhik. Either way, I don't know whether you have put your video off.
sir, am I audible, sir?
You are
Yeah,
audible, but not visible. Now it is better now. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sir, in view of the large tumor, I'll go for a CT, sir. Maybe a Vesipac CT.
What CT?
With a Vesipac contrast, CCT.
Okay.
And so since we can do a OPD, I will do a OPD flexi cystoscopy.
Okay. So both the things which you asked for, can you elaborate a little? Like you said, say Vesipac is a contrast. It's a non-ionic contrast, if you should say.
And it is a trade name.
Yeah, so you should not try to mention it in exam. So there is Omnipac, Vesipac. I mean, if we are all urologists, so IO, Hexol, this, that, we can have 100 names put together. Okay, so that is one thing. Then when you ask for a CT, it is always better that you are going to talk completely about the full thing. Contrast, enhanced CT, you want triphasic, you want CT with IVU in this case, because we are also wanting to see the upper tract properly, ureters properly, because finally we also know that we are looking at bladder malignancy, or in other words, urothelial malignancy. Okay.
So, sir, elaborating it, sir,
Secondly, just asking directly for a CT at 1.44, unless you are absolutely well prepared with that CT in high creatinine, we are going to ask you that question. So how will you manage the pre-CT?
Sir, we will hydrate the patient.
How?
Maybe with...
Let's see, you must have definitely managed such patients in your student life in MCH. So how will you do that?
Sir, we'll give, before the giving of the contrast in CT, we will hydrate with 1 liter of normal saline, IV.
So is that given bolus?
You have to look at ml per kg.
So blanketly, if I am a 30 kg individual, you will give me 1 liter bolus? So this is for all. I mean, you should know this protocol because we are urologists. We see patients with higher creatinine. We sometimes do CTs in them, many times do CTs in them. So we should know this. Everybody write this and keep, because these are the answers I don't think you should expect from the examiner. This should be a routine thing for us.
The standard would be a 10 ml per kg overnight hydration. Okay, and then continue the hydration subsequently for the next 12 to 24 hours. And then you check the creatinine to see whether you have a contrast-induced nephropathy or not. And what is the raise in creatinine which is important for you?
Sir, can we just repeat the creat once, because if it was infection related, then it could have settled, sir.
No, we'll let Abhik answer this question. Okay. No, there are very specific parameters that there is a contrast nephropathy. How do you look at it? How much you hydrate? And when you do a creatinine at 24 hours, you can rises by what number is it significant? And at the end of a week, how much it becomes significant by 3 days. So there are a lot of things, specific parameters there. There's nothing arbitrary about the whole thing.
So our discussion is going kind of in contrast nephropathy, but it is important at this point in time.
Yeah, we stop this. So you need a CT, so I'll give you the CT.
And another thing is to add acetylcysteine also. That's what we do.
Yes.
That helps actually.
Yes, sir.
So this is the
and another point is probably we can do a GFR also here, because in case we are thinking of a neoadjuvant kind of thing and with cisplatin, Ganesh, do you think you will get a GFR done in this patient? Because serum creatinine is it's a very crude marker.
Right, sir. Sir, we had actually not completed it. No, he was on the CT, so I didn't proceed actually. Because we should first talk about nicely about CT.
Okay, okay.
I mean, in MIBC, these are the most important things. Like you were asking, why right hydronephrosis is there.
Right.
1 second. Where did that go? Chalo. So this is a plain film.
Yeah.
You want me to run it again? I can run it again.
Abhit, you have seen the CT?
Sir, just one more time I would like to say.
Yeah, sure. Sir, it's showing.
You want me to run the contrast also so straight away?
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
This is arterial phase. So this is a delayed phase.
I think the left ureter is seen clearly. The right ureter was not so gathering the contrast. Yeah, I think you have seen it well.
So this is a CT at this point.
Okay, so post CT, we have a large mass, 5.7 by 6.6 by 4.4 centimeters, right lateral wall extending towards base, involvement of right VUJ, right moderate hydronephrosis. We have changed by the CT. The CT and sonography picture always changes. CT is slightly, as we all know, better in sensitivity, specificity, and mild right upstream dilatation of ureter. On arterial phase, multiple feeders noted from vesical branches. That says that the tumor is vascular, nothing else. No, there is no loss of fat planes. Few subcentric small volume perivesical lymph nodes, very small lymph nodes. Sub-centimeter means they cannot comment that they are significant. That means non-significant.
Sir, shall I do the other two CTs also now? Just to
yes, sir. Consider all the other organs were normal.
All the other liver and everything is normal.
Yeah. That is putting the other CT. So just to rapidly answer his original question, contrast-induced nephropathy is, he was asking you very specifically, I think you all should know, but 25% increase in serum creatinine or 0.5 milligram absolute increase in serum creatinine value. So within 48 to 72 hours.
24 hours.
See, one urine output is also less than 0.5 ml per kg per hour for more than 6 hours.
Right. I mean, you're right. Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, now this is it. I think once you get through that, I think we'll see the other CTs also. Sir, Anish, sir, I can show the other two CTs. This is one other CT. which is a horrible CT basically.
Oh, not so clear. Huh?
नहीं वो पूरा mass bilateral hydro failure, and this fellow had an SPC because he had a stricture urethra.
Okay.
Done outside. And this is another case. And this guy had a Stagon calculus on the right side.
Right kidney.
Okay. So we go back to the thing.
Our first case.
Our first case.
So, Abhit, you had asked for two things, I think. You said CT and?
Sir, cystoscopy.
Okay. So, okay. Yeah. Go on.
So, can we just discuss about the other imaging investigation at this point, and then
Yes, absolutely.
Just a bit to let them know about MRI.
Right.
So, do you think MRI would have, Abhishek? Do you think MRI would have helped? Then you are not bothered about this contrast thing also. And what are the differences between a MRI and CT? Fundamental differences. Which has got better contrast resolution, which has got better spatial resolution?
Sir, MR with contrast we can do it till the creatinine value of 2 milligrams per deciliter, sir, with gadolinium contrast, and then MR is better for soft tissue resolution, sir. So,
right.
And regarding when it comes to lymph node evaluation, I think both are same, sir.
Okay.
Both are same for lymph
So,
node.
as
For
you said,
detecting
soft
the
tissue is good, but sir asked you another specific word, spatial.
Yes, sir.
I think you missed it. So, spatial resolution of MRI.
Yes.
What's the CT?
Sir, I think spatial resolution will be better with CT, sir.
That's right.
So basically,
Yes, sir.
in MRI actually, if you wish to sort of see between T2 and T3, those things can be much more clear.
Right.
Because from T2 to T3A, it is very difficult to differentiate on a CT scan.
Okay,
But
sir.
you can definitely differentiate once it goes beyond the T3B
T3,
and
yes.
T4. Yeah, those things are better on CT. Now, so in this case, actually, we have done with the CT because we basically know that this is a mass which is just muscle invasive. That is what it looked like initially.
Yes, sir.
So I'll just ask you one more quick question, and then we'll go ahead. So what are the other indications for MRI in the setting of CA bladder? Where else you can use? We talked about the diagnosis as a diagnostic protocol, right? So what are the other places where you can use MRI? Other indications of MRI, because it is coming in a big way.
Sir, any indication specific to carcinoma bladder, sir? Or
In CA bladder, where all you can use MRI?
Abhik, you can take the question.
Abhik?
So apart from race create, maybe.
No, you need to get the question properly. Right? What are the indications for an MRI over a CA bladder?
So I will tell you there are a couple of things. Like when you do induction chemotherapy, and then you want to know the response.
Okay, sir.
Right? So that is where a good MRI helps. And now there is, you should all go back and read. There is a lot of talk about the advantages of DWI over the T2 weightages, especially with regards to this. So there are some more conditions where DWI has shown very good results over the T2. you can differentiate sometimes from the surrounding tissue at the bladder. That area with the use of DWI you can use. Sometimes when you are not very clear, it's a kind of indeterminate situation. That's where again once the DWI comes to help. So there are conditions which you can use MRI. Okay, so now let's go ahead.
Ganesh?
So cystoscopy.
Cystoscopy.
And particularly in this kind of patient, like the soft tissue resolution, no, the muscularis propria layer would be nicely probably appreciated in the MRI also.
Okay.
And here we are suspecting ureteral involvement, and we are projecting alternatively indirectly that muscle invasion is there. So both these hypotheses can get correlated probably with the help of MRI. CT may not be so useful.
Okay, sir.
Exactly.
So another investigation which you asked was this thing,
GFR.
cystoscopy.
Sorry.
No, sir, he asked actually cystoscopy.
Cystoscopy,
So,
yes.
so why are you asking cystoscopy? If I have, if I project this case as a 57-year-old large bladder mass, sonography has confirmed there is a bladder mass, cytology is already suspicious, and we have done a CT which shows us moderate hydronephrosis. I can see the mass, I can see the ureter UV junction is involved. So now I want cystoscopy. Your take on it, Avik?
Sir, it's yeah, sir. I agree with you. Now, since it's a clear-cut bladder malignancy, so involving the right ureteric orifice, large tumor, and maybe based on CT staging, it will be T3, N0, M0. So,
T3.
Sir, this perivesical fat stranding was there, so that's why.
CT-wise perivesical fat stranding. Again, there is a sensitivity specificity issue here. I mean, at least clinically, T2 you can
T2 I can
you
say.
can
Sir.
be sure.
Yeah, T2
I mean,
I'm sure.
or if you want to hard first say T3, then you say it might be 3T. Pull on your words politely. I mean.
Okay, sir. T2. So T2 N0 M0. So basically, the we need to since
I give you the
CT
benefit of doubt of T3A also. Continue your discussion.
Okay, sir. Sir, so we can proceed for a TURBT so that we get the tissue biopsy for proceeding with further management.
So you want to do a TURBT only for a biopsy? You want to do cystoscopy only to look? Suppose if I do a urine cytology and suppose again, and it comes highly, I mean, Paris classification of high-grade urothelial carcinoma cell C. Then your intent was only biopsy, so you have got something now.
Sir, if I mean if.
So what was your plan with the tissue?
Sir, plan was mainly to get a tissue biopsy. Yeah, so that and also to since we do not know the status of the right lower ureter, MRI can add to it, but otherwise we can do an RGP also in top and to look for any filling defect in the lower ureter.
I mean, fairly you were told that the ureter UV junction is involved. You put a okay. You want to confirm it by the scope.
Yeah, yes, sir. By an RGP bar URS also. Just because the lower ureter was not opacified in the CT film, there can be a tumor, a upper uterine UTU.
But then, is it a standard protocol to do RGP also? We have a 5.7 by 6.6 by 4.5 centimeter mass sitting there. I think this big mass will probably tell us clearly that the ureteric junction is involved or not. But still, then should we contemplate RGP? Sir is asking something.
Yeah, have you seen any time in any bladder tumor, for that matter, you might have seen maybe 15, 20 or maybe more by now. So have you seen RGP being done along with the URBT? Or you are just contemplating on your own?
No, sir. Actually,
so to help you, I would have just accepted this at least. His cytology is suspicious, so I would like to do a cystoscopy, take a biopsy, so that I get a tissue diagnosis. And if it is T3A, I want to consider neoadjuvant therapy or something. That would have been a take. We would have justified at least your whole answer.
So in short, I think there is no use of doing the RGP and anything in this case. Or for that matter, in all the cases where we do cystoscopy and we do TURBT. So generally, except in a very exceptional once in a blue moon case, probably that may be required, but otherwise it is not. Okay, so we go ahead.
So one more question I want to ask you. When we reach the CT scan, I am the patient. So how will you counsel me in this type of presentation? Abhishek, you can answer that. Huh? No problem.
Sir,
how will you counsel me? I am the patient with all these things.
Sir,
because I am very scared. I don't know, doctor, what you will do.
Sir, once the CT is done, and which is here in this case with right hydroureteronephrosis and occupying the right VUJ, sir, right ureteric orifice. So I will inform the patient that he will require a tissue diagnosis, which will be done with TURBT. And depending
on, you explain me only.
And depending
so
on
you are now telling me tissue diagnosis. Okay, one thing.
And once we get the histopathology, depending on the histopathology, he may further require that will decide the further course of treatment, sir.
So suppose hypothetically you get histopathology urothelial cancer high grade, what you will do to me? Tell me.
Sir, high grade with
urothelial cancer cells. Okay. If they are seen on cytology, usually they are high grade only.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So depending on that, if it's a muscle invasive, then he will require neoadjuvant chemo followed by.
And sir, then you forgot to do my chest CT which had metastasis. Then.
Sir. Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. Once that we get the tissue diagnosis, we will get a metastatic workup, sir, including chest CT, liver, serum calcium.
So remember, when you are sitting to counsel a patient,
yes, sir,
you have to be having a comprehensive approach. You have to talk to sentences on the malignancy, on what you have investigated, what you found, and what may be the different scenarios. That's why I asked you this question. It takes you off board. Okay, I will treat you with a cystectomy. Done.
Sorry, sir.
So remember that. Okay. Sir had asked you a question actually. We should continue with that. So what will we do after the CT?
Sir, as the CT has been done, so we'll...
so we were discussing cystoscopy. Abhik said something. Can we know your views on the cystoscopy? Suppose if you put a scope inside and it's under a GA, what would you like to do? We discussed that RGP will not be done.
No, sir. No
RGP.
No, Abhishek is answering now.
Sir, I would like to know whether the tumor is involving the bladder neck or any
tumor was not involving the bladder neck as per the cystoscopy, and it was also seen in the CT.
And whether any suspicious for carcinoma in situ is there, sir, when I do cystoscopy. And then
so one red dot was found.
So, but the chances of turning it to be
I don't know. This is the finding. You put the scope. This is the finding. You are seeing the large mass. Right UV junction is involved with that mass, and you find one red spot. As you are asking, I am answering you.
So next, I would like to do.
So what I am interested in understanding is what will you do further?
Sir, he will require a TURBT, sir.
Okay. Will you do a complete TURBT?
Sir,
see, once you decide giving that answer, you should go for it then. I'll do a complete TURBT. I'll see the histopathology.
Yes, sir. I in this case, I would like to do complete TURBT and look for histopathology, sir. Before that, I would like to do a bimanual examination, sir. Before
okay,
and
how does
after.
That help us?
Sir, in this era of CT, its significance may be less, sir, but still it's we do it here. So
Okay,
it helps
no
us. Okay.
So we used to do it routinely, but with the increasing clarity of the CT scans, you have decreased a little.
Yes, sir.
Although it is recommended as one of the procedures within the cystoscopy TURBT, but its importance has surely decreased because now we are seeing greater clarity and in spiral CTs and with cine vision.
Yes, sir. So once we get the tissue diagnosis,
So
then
if we get only tissue diagnosis on basis of the T3A and obviously with the moderate hydronephrosis,
yes, sir.
is he not a candidate for pre-definitive therapy neoadjuvant?
Yes, sir. He will require neoadjuvant chemotherapy, sir, if it comes out T2 or more, sir.
Ganesh, I will give you the cystoscopy findings. There was a large mass,
Okay, sir.
which was just adherent to the uretrovesical UV junction. So we put in a stent and we did a complete TURBT. The rest of the bladder was normal. The bladder neck was normal. The prostatic,
Okay.
there was nothing in the prostate. So I'll just give you the biopsy of the TURBT. I'll read you the impression. Superficial tissue, high-grade invasive transitional cell carcinoma invading into muscularis. Deep tissue, high-grade invasive transitional cell carcinoma invading into the muscularis. Now the issue is where he got the fever and all this dysuria was he had a scrotal abscess. So we just take that away. So this is
So at the end of TURBT, we have a PT2.
Yeah.
Maybe T2, N0, M0 because we have technically done a metastatic workup.
We did a
High-grade urothelial cell carcinoma.
We didn't do a CT chest. We did a chest X-ray, which was normal.
Okay.
And the microscopic description tells me that the tumor tissue, tumor giant cells, foreign body cell reaction, perineural invasion is also noted, and this tumor tissue extending into the muscularis.
Okay.
It's T2B N0 M0.
So the only thing left out here is a LVI probably, as we discussed in the last case discussion.
Yeah,
the addition of LVI makes it a very high risk category. If by chance it is a T1, but this is T2 straightforward, just to distinguish. Yes, Abhishek, you were calculating your treatment. So now how can you, I would just say two things, like nowadays we routinely do a CT chest actually, sir, because we had two incidences where X-ray chests were bang normal and almost in the post-op phase, first 5 days, the patient had some chest problems and we did a CT and we found multiple metastases, which were actually smaller in size. So nowadays we use the guideline and you do a CT chest.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
It was very difficult to explain to these two patients about the whole big gamut of surgery when the whole setting was palliative.
Agreed.
Right.
So Abhishek, actually I diversed because we were waiting for you.
Sir, as the biopsy is suggestive of a T2 lesion, sir,
Right.
and CT N0, and once the
So I'll stop you here. I mean, what sir is interested in listening is what all can you offer to the patient? And again, if I bore you with that, how will you counsel further? So you have a distinct stage of the disease known to you.
Yes, sir.
You have the CT findings seen.
Yes, sir.
Sir, Mallikarjun sir mentioned to you already that we could actually lift the tumor slightly and put the stent.
Okay,
So technically, maybe the whole weight of the tumor was falling on the ureteric orifice, and that was the cause of moderate hydronephrosis.
yes, sir.
So in this kind of situation, what all you can offer to the patient and what all you can counsel about how the disease will prognosticate?
Sir, with this histopathology report and metastatic workup being negative, sir,
Right. Or you tell us about the treatments and let Abhik answer the next question. How will he prognosticate?
Sir, with this patient, with this diagnosis of T2, N0, M0, sir, I
Right.
would counsel the patient for neoadjuvant chemotherapy, sir. 4 cycles of neoadjuvant chemotherapy. and followed after 2 cycles. We'll reassess with the CT scan, and once if the tumor is showing regression or there is no recurrence, then we'll complete the 4 cycles, and then will counsel him for the definitive surgery, sir. That is a radical cystectomy with diversion.
Okay, so what is the benefit of NACT?
Sir, neoadjuvant chemotherapy by 5 years the overall survival.
Question is like 5 to 8% in the ABC and review. So survival advantage with NACT. But could you also tell us the pros and cons, both sides? Sir, what we benefit and what we lose?
The neoadjuvant chemotherapy delays the. I will first will be the advantages, sir. Advantage, it will take care of any micrometastasis. So, if any micrometastasis are present, it will downstage the tumor. And cons are like it will delay the definitive treatment, and patient may be physiologically he may be little bit down for the surgery, sir.
Absolutely. And if you take not this patient but some other patients, like they might be having continuous hematuria or something, some people pass tissue clots and all. So there are slight pros and cons, but as such with neoadjuvant chemotherapy, which is a strong guideline with good evidence, so 5 to 8% survival advantage.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So you said definitive therapy also.
Yes, sir.
Which would be surgery.
Yes, sir.
So I am still scared about surgery. Then what options I have? Can I, suppose if your chemotherapy works very well, doctor, you have done a maximal TURBT. Can I just not do anything? Or is BCG okay with me after that, just to get immunity?
Sir, in this case, we can follow.
Suppose you give me 4 cycles and my CT scan or MRI done is nice, smooth bladder afterwards. You do a scopy, I have nothing, no tumor.
Sir, but the tumor size was big, sir. So we cannot even with the hydronephrosis, which was obvious, of course, because of.
But hydronephrosis, it was because of the fall of the tumor.
Fall of the external compressions. So
I'm interested in saving my bladder. Why should I? I mean, you have given nice chemotherapy. It has acted on all micrometastasis, all tumor gone, tumor removed by surgery prior, and then obviously we do a response RECIST criteria CT scan, right?
Yes.
So that is excellent.
Sir,
it is showing smooth walls.
That is against
Abhik, you want to say something on this?
Sir, if
in the scenario which I am telling you, you have given me chemotherapy 4 cycles, bladder is smooth, cystoscopy done again just to see. I insist on cystoscopy. It's not a routine protocol. It is nice, all healed, no tumor inside. It looks like that YT0. I'm not saying C or P.
Sir, I would offer him as what Abhishek said, that is this thing, what is the standard of care. But yeah, if the patient is willing for preserving...
So what is the standard of care?
Sir, the radical cystectomy, sir, after neoadjuvant, because of the survival benefit. If the patient is cisplatin eligible, which looks like, sir, because Mallikarjuna sir said that patient is not, by the history doesn't look like performance status is poor. And
right. So he looks to be statin eligible, I agree. Statin eligible.
So statin dependent, MVAC chemo we can give, and then we can do the radical cystectomy. That is that we would offer in the first place. But if patient, as you said, wants to preserve his bladder, and if there is after chemo there is no residual tumor, nothing is there, then we can maybe compromise with a bladder preserving strategy. I don't know. I don't have much idea, sir.
So Abhik, you said MVAC and Abhishek said GC, right? So can you just elaborate on it? I mean, all of you should know whether there is any difference between the two. And so what is your take on it? Why? Or is your center giving MVAC and Abhishek's center is giving GC? Are you giving MVAC to all these patients as neoadjuvant?
Abhik, you take the question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Are you giving MVAC
Yes,
to
sir.
all these patients as a new adjuvant?
Yes, sir.
So do you think it is a better protocol than GC? What is your comment? Or it is just a center preference?
I don't know, sir.
So Abhik, if you have read the trials about NACT, then you should be able to answer that.
Abhishek, why do you give GC in every case, not MVAC?
So both MVAC regimen and GC regimen carry category 1 recommendation as per the NCCN, sir. But GC has a better side effect profile, sir, than
Yes, that is one important difference. That's why many prefer despite a category 1 recommendation for the both. Any other points? Cost, does it matter?
We use 4 drugs here, only 2 drugs are used, sir. So cost will also be less in case of gemcitabine and cisplatin regimens.
Right. So we go ahead, and so what is your next plan? So you said you are all going for cystectomy. Actually, Dr. Ganesh was actually trying to take you into the area of trimodal therapy.
Yes.
So
I was thinking if you could explain me at the beginning only that
yes.
We can offer neoadjuvant and go for definitive therapy, or then if we have already done a maximal TURBT. So if I want to preserve my bladder as a patient in T2N0 M0, could you give me a combination bladder preservation and, as sir is saying, trimodality?
Sir,
Because this looks like a well-selected patient though. The mass was just above the ureteric orifice, so ureteric orifice can be contoured in the IMRT protocol. IGRT and daily tomography can be done to protect the orifice also, and a certain amount of boost can be given to the tumor bed also, where we have done a maximal TURBT.
And the tumor size is also within almost 5 centimeters.
5 centimeters.
Yeah. Because these things are coming up actually. So
with bladder preservation, you give a chemotherapy and you can then give radiation.
Yes,
and during radiation also you can give a sensitizing chemotherapy for either a cisplatin, mitomycin or something which will help in the radiation also.
Okay, so now you have opted for radical cystectomy.
Right.
So how would you do it, Abhishek? You must have assisted and probably done some as a third year.
Yes, sir. Before we go to the cystectomy, a little more, some more detail about the trimodal therapy, so that these guys would.
Okay. Please.
We need you both of you to speak on that. A little more detail on the trimodal therapy. How many cycles of MVAC or gemcitabine cisplatin, or then the amount of radiation, and then again the chemo. What is the time lag in between each of them?
Okay, so I don't have it. I can't put the presentation, but I'll just say trimodality means basically 3 treatments. So we remember like that. One is surgery, that is maximal TURBT, then chemotherapy, and then radiation. So best results have been found with the trimodality combination. Why? Because the debulking of the tumor, a complete TURBT. Sometimes even if the tumor is say T3, but debulking the whole tumor and then sending the patient for trimodality helps, because the radiation can act on it can concentrate on the remaining tissue, something like that. Again, whenever we plan radiation, at this center, our center, we use cisplatin gemcitabine as a chemotherapy. And then during radiation, again, it is about 66 grays of radiation to the bladder. The whole bladder is given radiation, and my radiation oncologist always tries to give a small boost to the area where the tumor actually was. Now, we don't have any markers to put cystoscopically and mark the area. We had twice tried with a small amount of contrast, but the contrast later on gets absorbed. So we could not manage that. But otherwise, the defect, whatever is appreciated on the tomo during the IGRT, is kept into the mind with the previous CT picture. They are all matched and a boost is given at that site. Usually the treatment is spread over 4 weeks and gradual radiation is given. We are not talking about moderate hypofractionation or anything in this case right now. So and the results in well-selected cases, the results are comparable. This is what all studies show. I mean comparable because if you see grossly, even in the guidelines or the papers which are reflecting, so cancer-specific survival in operated cases, radical cystectomy, they may be of 2 stages or 3 stages also, T2, T3 combined. So it is something like 5-year survival comes to 58%. CSS comes to something like 62 to 65%. This is all put together. I'm not saying exam specific stage 1 cystectomy, stage 2 cystectomies and all this. So the results of bladder preservation in well-selected cases do match that.
Okay, to take this still forward, we actually did not give a neoadjuvant for the simple reason that this was a T2 N0 disease.
Right.
If it would have been T3, I would have gone in for a neoadjuvant because the survival rates in terms of doing a T2 neoadjuvant versus adjuvant have got no difference in survival rates.
Right.
So we went ahead and did a cystectomy, and then I'll put you the cystectomy biopsy report.
Okay, sir. So Abhik, please see the report and maybe you can comment on that. I think we should go at the impression directly.
Okay, sir.
Bladder, procedure, cystectomy, tumor site, left lateral.
Right lateral.
I consider it right lateral wall. I think that must be typo error.
Yeah.
So tumor type invasive, transitional cell carcinoma. So nowadays we just use urothelial, high grade, solid, microscopic tumor extension in the serosa. Margins free from tumor. So specimen margin is free. Although the disease is extravascular, the specimen margins are free. This is what I get. And lymphovascular invasion is absent. So PT3A, N0, M0 margins, if we can say, free. The lymph node count is not mentioned, or is there another report?
I'll give you the lymph node count.
I mean, for Abhik we can tell because otherwise he'll.
No, it is there. It is there.
So Abhik, actually, Anish sir was asking you about cystectomy as a procedure. So, sir, I think you should take up that point.
Yeah, I think we should dwell a bit because...
a bit on this because it is important.
Yeah, it is important. So
whoever was answering, please answer to sir.
Yeah.
So I'll give you the lymph node count. The right sided there are only 2 lymph nodes, and the left sided there have been 4 lymph nodes. All lymph nodes are 1 into 1 centimeter.
Okay.
And they are positive or negative?
Negative, sir. Negative.
Negative. Okay, so Abhik, you were, I think you mentioned cystectomy. Is that right?
Sir, yes, sir.
Okay, so how will you prefer to do? You are the surgeon. You are a consultant. So how would you do? Just tell us very, very salient point. We don't want position, this and that, all that. But you have counseled the patient and he is willing for cystectomy. So what is your, you are happy doing open, laparoscopic, robotic?
Sir, open radical cystectomy, sir.
Open radical cystectomy. Okay, good.
Sir, one thing I would like to just add that since he's a young male, 57, and since the tumor is away from the trigone and bladder neck, so we can offer him bladder, new bladder. So for we can, during the initial TURBT itself, we can even take some tissue from prostatic urethra to prove that they are negative.
Now prostatic urethra you have taken and it shows CIS. So
sir, that will be a contraindication for new bladder, sir.
Is it a contraindication? Does it change the stage of the tumor, if it is just in the prostatic urethra, does it change the stage of the tumor?
No, sir.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Yeah. And you can still think about if the margins were negative, you can still think about a neobladder. So, what are the situations where you will not like to do a neobladder?
Sir, if the urethral margin is positive, or
urethral margin positive, yes.
If the overall any margin, if it is positive.
Overall means?
Sir, ink margin, sir, involving the ink margin.
Mm-hmm. But does it really matter?
Ink margin on which side? On the dome? Right lateral wall.
So in this case, yes, sir, right lateral wall.
So sir has asked you a question. Does it matter there?
It matters, sir. If it's involving the margin, we should do a diversion.
No, I don't think there are enough studies now suggesting that in such situations you can still go ahead. Because what happens? Where does the recurrence occur? See, you are only bothered about the recurrence. You have made a neobladder and you don't want the recurrence to spoil the, the whole reconstructed thing. So where do generally the recurrences occur?
The pelvic recurrence in nodes, sir.
Nodes. So if there are large nodes, N2, N3, like that, then that becomes a sort of contraindication. But if you have, like what you said, margins here and there positive, they don't matter. Right? Okay. So, in this case, what will you, how will you counsel the patient? Because are you going to do an ileal route in him or a neobladder? Because you have to discuss with the patient before you take him up for surgery. That is a very important point. He is 57, he is otherwise fit and fine, no comorbidities as such. So, what is your plan?
Sir, we will counsel about the procedure and its like implication and its potential complication, like it can cause erectile dysfunction or leakage of urine. So he should be motivated for undergoing the procedure and to do post-operatively Kegels exercise and sir.
So you would like to do a neobladder here, right? And yes, which neobladder do you recommend, or you have seen more of these cases, or you must have read about the differences between the different neobladders. So, what is your preference?
Sir, with an ileal neobladder with an end pouch.
So commonly, which neobladder you have seen? That is what sir is asking you.
Yeah, because this is a practical exam, right? So you should be talking first
what you have
your
seen,
experience, what you have seen, what you have assisted, what you have performed, how will you do. After that, we have lot of options that we keep on discussing, theory, guidelines, all those things, they come afterwards. So in the practical exam, we should first answer what is specifically asked, and you are the surgeon, you are going to do it. So that is what you should tell me.
It's ileal neobladder with, we have seen what is commonly done is ileal neobladder with an end pouch.
With?
The with the end pouch, sir.
Okay.
End
right.
pouch.
Right.
End shape. End shaped. And
right.
Studer limb, sir, for the anastomosis of the ureters.
Studer limb for the anastomosis of ureters. So, do you call it as modification? Is it a modification of Studer which you have been talking about, or the Studer procedure itself? Is it some kind of combination or it is a classical Studer? You are confused. See, a very important thing. No. I'll tell you. Very important thing. Most of our postgraduates and so many hundreds of places I have been as an examiner. This is one of the very, very common things. You are not alone. What happens? The different surgeons, your different consultants do it in a different manner. Sometimes it's a one oncology unit, unit A will do this way, unit B will do that way, somebody will do Hartmann, somebody will do W pouch, somebody will do Studer. Okay, so this, I know this happens, and there are institutional preferences, surgeon preferences. As a postgraduate, it is your job to ask the surgeon at the end of the procedure, sir, why did you prefer this? Why I have seen you doing your last 10 cases, you are doing only this case. You must discuss with them and you must go and read beyond that. Not only that you just discuss with it. And then you make up your mind. And I am telling you, most of the surgeons, they do their some kind of modification. Like Dr. Sudhir Rawal does some picture modification, just to give an example. So what happens, the fellows working with him, they get confused. Because they don't talk to him. They don't read what he has published, what he has presented. So to cut a long story short, it is very important because you postgraduates are now flooded with a sea of knowledge. Everywhere there are hundreds of guidelines, hundreds of things happening all around you. So what I will suggest that you should, whatever procedure, like the procedure which you mentioned, it's okay. I feel that this is a modification of the Studer, which he likes and he does. That's fair enough, whatever they do. But you should know that what exactly was being done. Okay? And then you should be clear about it. When you come out, then you might have seen some Studers, you might have seen some Indiana pouches or W-shaped or Hartmann and so on and so forth, depending on your consultant's choice. It is very important. So I think when you go back, I am sure you will ask your consultant that I think this is a kind of modification of Studer.
Right.
Yeah. Ganesh, what is?
Yes, I think so. And my take is that by chance that there is a possibility that some units may be just doing IL conduit also, so no harm. So you can say ki I have not actually assisted a neobladder, and probably by reading you should know one or two of the standard neobladders, at least theoretically.
Exactly.
So that is also okay. That is also perfectly okay. So this looks like a slight modification of a ideal Studer's neobladder.
Yeah.
As it looks to me also.
Right.
So that is fine. So I hope, Abhik, this is a procedure what is your unit is doing, and it is fully acceptable as far as the results and everything is good.
So what are have you done follow-ups in some of, I think in the clinic, you must have followed up some of these cases in the early post-operative period, the late post-operative period, and any complications. Before that, have you seen any intraoperative complications?
Sir,
intraoperative.
Can I one presentation so that I can see some chat and then take questions from?
Yes, sir.
Yes, please.
Yes, Abhik, I think we are waiting for you.
Sir, one thing which I have seen practically is that sometimes the length of the mesentery is not adequate for the loop to reach the pelvis. So then, that is one problem intraoperatively which we face. It may not.
So how do you manage that problem?
Sir, initially before making the pouch only we have to mobilize and see whether it is reaching there, and then only we should commit for making the pouch.
Okay. And suppose we have done the thing and now there is a gap of say 2 centimeters then. So sometimes you can form a small tube of you can refashion your modification and form a small tube of one of the limbs and connect that 2 centimeters to the urethra. So these are all certain modifications or troubleshooters which can be done. Yes, you continue with your answer.
So there can be another problem which we face is the bleeding from the small pelvic vessels or from the DVC.
Okay.
So that we have to control well before the anastomosis. Because after anastomosis, nothing can be done.
Okay.
That's one. And
that is mostly things. So will you keep a stent in the ureter?
Yes, sir. We put IFT as splints. Infant
IFT.
Splints.
Okay. And that we bring out through the neobladder, through the skin outside.
Through the skin outside. We place left and right ureteric splints of different caliber so that we can identify. That is one.
Okay.
And apart from that,
would be better, or such a thing would be better? Any discussion you have had, or I mean, why infant feeding tubes only? No discussion. Okay.
Okay.
Then is there do you use a SPC?
SPC we use, sir.
Okay. What is the advantage of that?
Sir, we have one SPC and one periurethral catheter will be there through which we can irrigate post-operatively. We can wash.
So suppose if we have only periurethral catheter, is it difficult to irrigate? I mean, this is, since you're not doing, you can tell us hypothetically, but you should know the things actually.
One more thing is yes, sir. I don't know.
So Abhishek, in your center also you are doing the same thing?
Sir,
can you just point by point tell us first?
Yeah, we usually do here ileal conduit, sir.
Okay, no problem.
We do here lap assisted cystectomy, and open will be the bowel reconstruction, sir.
Extracorporeal urinary diversion. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So we usually do here ileal conduit, sir, post.
Okay. So many people use stents. Many people still use infant feeding tubes. That is perfectly acceptable. And as to the habit of SPC, I think many centers have now given up doing SPC, although it was there in the early period of the neobladder. Anish sir, I think your comments are
important. Yeah, these things are a lot of individual preference, practice based, and the so important thing is in somebody's hand, he feels more comfortable. So it is something like that. And now, what is your take on the lymphadenectomy, Abhishek? How much will you do? And in this case, how will you tackle lymphadenectomy?
Sir, it's lymphadenectomy, sir. It can be either standard or extended, sir. Standard is up to...
No, in this case, what will you do? Again, in exams, we should not give such answers because you are the surgeon. You have to do it. And what will you do and why? That is...
So you will have to keep some answers ready with some kind of justification. Either you say... And then you think of 1 or 2 points of justification. One justification point would be what you do in your institute. The second justification point would be what is recent in literature. Because the literature is going to go up, down, up, down, up, down. It is going to say yes, no, yes, no. And we'll have some point last 1 year, 2 years, what is the recent thing. So you should be ready with these points.
Yeah, very right, Ganesh. This, I think if once the postgraduates learn this, absolutely, they have no problem in the exam. Most of the problems occur when they are
explained
confused.
all this for you to answer sir's question.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Sir, he will require extended pelvic lymphadenectomy, sir.
Extended. So what is extended pelvic lymphadenectomy?
Sir, in extended pelvic lymphadenectomy, the lymph nodes up to the bifurcation of aorta, or maybe just proximal to the bifurcation of aorta, the lymph nodes are removed, sir, which will involve sacral, presacral, and the pelvic true pelvic lymph nodes like internal iliac, external iliac, and obturator lymph nodes, sir.
Okay. So when do you do extended, super extended pelvic lymphedema. Have you heard this word? In this case, okay, you selected extended, right? And so, what is super extended?
Sir, in super extended lymphadenectomy, we go beyond the bifurcation, sir, up to the inferior mesenteric artery, sir.
So, in which case you will like to do super extended? Indications for super extended.
Sorry, sir.
Okay. So, and then what is the? What is important? Is it the number of lymph nodes? And how do you interpret them later on? In this case, of course, the lymph nodes are negative. So you have done extended and they have all come out negative. Your problem is sorted out. Now, suppose there is a case where you have taken out 10 and 4 of them are positive. So how do you interpret that?
So the positivity of the lymph nodes out of the total number, which is lymph node density, sir.
Density. So what is the importance of lymph node density?
Sir, it helps us prognosticate patients, sir, regarding the further requirement of the adjuvant chemotherapy. And,
adjuvant chemotherapy.
Yes.
Yes.
And right. For radiotherapy and disease, I mean, close for the follow-up.
Okay. Right. So should we switch over to the other kind of discussions about the adjuvant, about the latest recent advances and other things?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Right. So what is the adjuvant chemotherapy? Suppose in this case the lymph nodes come positive. Yes, so and you plan an adjuvant chemotherapy. So which adjuvant chemotherapy will you prefer? And how long? How will you follow him up?
The adjuvant chemotherapy, if no prior neoadjuvant has not been given, then we can give him the same regimen, sir, like gemcitabine, cisplatin for 4 cycles, or MVAC regimen for 4 cycles, sir. And then.
So we have 3 scenarios, Abhishek. One is that as this case has gone in real time, no new adjuvant, cystectomy done, and sir has given the scenario that lymph node comes positive scenario. So in that case, what you will do, you will go for a straightforward adjuvant chemotherapy, extrapolating the data, which is again like a ABC meta-analysis, which says that there looks to be an advantage of giving adjuvant chemotherapy. Say 5% again, overall survival advantage can be there. And then go ahead with 4 cycles of GC or MVAC, whatever the institution and the medical oncologist is using. Other thing is that neoadjuvant given and operated lymph nodes negative. So in that case, anything to be done?
If the tumor, if it was a T2 only, sir. If it was T3.
This time T3A margins negative, lymph nodes negative.
So then no need, sir. We can.
Okay. And the third scenario is neoadjuvant given, surgery done, lymph nodes still say 2 out of say 12 come positive. Then what will you do? I think that was the whole spectrum of questions sir wanted to ask you.
Sir, it's
because both the scenarios are very clear.
Sir, in first case,
is this scenario.
Sir, in first case where neoadjuvant has not been given, post-radical.
No, third scenario. Let us discuss third scenario. First, both the first two.
He will require adjuvant chemotherapy, sir. Plus addition of, maybe he will require addition of radiotherapy also, depending on the lymph node density or whether there was any extranodal extension of the
NCCN allows that? Only chemo plus radiation?
Sir, in first, no, sir, we can give radio, sir. If it was not given preoperatively, then we can give radiotherapy in adjuvant setting also, sir.
Avik, what is your take on it? Third scenario, neoadjuvant chemotherapy given, operated, E3A margins negative, 2 lymph nodes out of 12 positive.
Sir, adjuvant chemo.
I mean, Anish sir had asked this question actually. I clarified the 3 scenarios. So, adjuvant chemo.
Yes.
And or do you agree, disagree with radiation which he said?
I don't know, sir, but we'll discuss in multidisciplinary team.
That's the best answer. Sir, I think you should take over.
You continue.
So, usually by guidelines, there are no chemo RT protocols yet. Chemo is the guideline given. Means we are actually at TMS doing a randomized trial with advanced cases like this which come out after surgery or sometimes pre-op. We know that this is an advanced use neoadjuvant where we randomize them to chemo versus chemo RT. And that we do because of we are doing this trial because there is a bladder cancer has a good 20 to 25% of pelvic recurrences, which happen in supposedly these advanced cases and moreover seen in lymph node disease. So it's not in the guidelines actually, but under investigation. So that is one issue I think over.
Okay, Bali, I think you wanted to take some questions in between.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So one question was, how do you evaluate a patient if his creatinine is beyond 2?
Evaluate a patient?
If his creatinine is beyond 2.
Beyond 2. So, no. So, the first thing is whether it is because of the bilateral hydronephrosis or some kind of obstructive uropathy or medical renal disease. So, that is the first question which we need to answer. Because in certain cases, we have even done PCNs also, and then their creatinine has come down to practically normal. And then you can take our decisions accordingly. Because sometimes some of these patients, it could be because of obstructive neuropathy with some acute exacerbations. So you come to know only after, because the patient may come dehydrated in infection, sometimes with fever, bilateral hydronephrosis. I think you are trying to hint at, some kind of that kind of scenario. So there we have to first optimize them, then get their creatinine and then go. Now there is another situation where it's a medical renal disease and maybe patient is diabetic and he has got other comorbidities, and that is why you find that his creatinine is on the higher side. So investigation wise, I think MRI without a contrast still can give you lot of information, and in case you at all wish to go ahead with cystectomy, then making a small ileal conduit, do a cystectomy, and then make a very small ileal conduit so that the electrolyte disturbances and all those issues are taken care to the gate itself. So that is how we generally sort out this.
To just clarify a little more on the small ileal conduit, if you can keep it to about 6 inches, that would be the best size of a conduit in case of renal failure. The other question was...
Answer for metastatic workup, in such patients where we cannot use any kind of contrast, we can maybe if available just do a FDG PET scan without a CT contrast.
Yeah, that's so. For metastatic workup.
The another question was, does the neurovascular invasion make a point, or is it considered as a point for a cystectomy?
Neurovascular bundle.
Yeah.
Well, this is another area of interest, and there is a lot of talk on the bundle preserving cystectomies, especially in the younger people. So, starting with the preoperative diagnostic test, can you preoperatively assess whether the neurovascular bundle is involved, or can it be spared? So there have been studies, and they have done this MRI with the DWI and DC, with that using those techniques, and still it is actually difficult to know whether you can really preserve in a particular case or not. But yes, I think in selected group of patients, one can go ahead with the nerve. Preserving the neurovascular bundle. In cases like this, this particular candidate, if you do a surgery, probably you can think about a neurovascular bundle preserving protocol. But if the tumor is very extensive, suppose it is T3B or maybe T4 like that, then of course that is not possible.
There is another question saying that would you do a complete TURBT in a large bladder tumors, somewhere beyond 6 centimeters? Are you looking at a straightaway cystectomy, doing a biopsy to see what is the extent, and then going a cystectomy, or would you like to do a total TURBT in these cases?
Yeah, actually, we come across this situation very often in my institute, and if we find that this tumor is really, like a bun or a cake with a solid base, the moment you put your scope in, it's a big tumor, and sometimes maybe bleeding with lot of clots around and a difficult situation. So, and there is, if most of the time there will be some hydronephrosis suggesting that most likely this is muscle invasive. So I would go from one side, from the safer side, do part resection, and then take a muscle. So that is my idea. I will not do the
absolutely. Whereas in the other spectrum, if this tumor is found to be 6 to 7 centimeters, but predominantly papillary, even with a broad base, we would go for a complete resection then in that case. If it is solid, then sir has answered already.
Yeah, so it's a lot depends on how the tumor looks like, what are the CT findings, and associations.
Ganesh, the last question, that you have resected the ureteric orifice, you are not able to stent it, and then you have put in a PCN, and does the patient go on lifelong PCN, or you can reimplant the ureter? It looks like that probably he's talking about a bladder preserving protocol in this particular case.
Okay. So many times, sir, as we resect with a cutting current, and many times we are able to stent, but taking this question specifically that we are not able to stent. So sometimes we leave it like that. And if say we have not done a PCN prior, suppose there is no PCN, then maybe in the post-op period, it is worthwhile to do a sonography and check whether the patient is developing a hydronephrosis on that side. Sometimes they don't develop. And if they develop, then it is a different thing that retrospectively you can think about the strategy of PCN and retrograde stenting, or antegrade stenting from up down.
So there was a little talk about BCG. So there's again a question on BCG that you have done a TURBT. A patient wants a bladder preserving protocol. A relook biopsy is negative. So what is the role of BCG?
So in T2 disease onwards, technically there is no role of BCG. And we discussed it last time. T1 high grade with CIS, very high risk. The first option usually we discuss is with a radical surgery. Again, the variants we don't discuss about BCG even with the T1, but T2 onwards we don't discuss about BCG. In my discussion, I just asked that question just as a part of questioning.
Okay, please go ahead with the discussion. I think we have answered fairly most of them. So
there was one small point whether neoadjuvant immunotherapy is to be used in any patient. So that is clearly in the clinical trial setting. So we use neoadjuvant chemotherapies only. Going ahead, I think, should we go on to metastatic bladder? If bladder presents with a metastatic, then we have the same protocols. Only thing is we talk about everything which is palliative. And then first line, we do have these chemotherapies, what we say MVAC GC. In second line, or we have to actually see the GFR of the patient. Rather, I should say that. And if the patient is cisplatin eligible, cisplatin-based chemotherapy is better. Otherwise, there is a small chance of carboplatin or immunotherapies in the first shot. And then we have to see further what can be used in the second line accordingly. If cisplatin-based is used in the first line, usually patient has to go for some kind of technically immunotherapy or then some clinical trial setting of chemotherapy if it is not affordable for immunotherapy. So the prognosis, of course, in metastatic bladder is not so good. The life has a certain extension with the immunotherapy strategies. I think metastatic bladder for our students, I think this much is more than enough. I think we should not go into it. About cystectomy is the question which sir answered already. Nerve sparing. Nowadays they divide into capsule sparing, seminal vesicle sparing, sometimes part prostate sparing, and then the last is nerve sparing, where you leave the whole neurovascular bundle in a young patient. So these are 4 types of cystectomy. And I think remaining question is on the follow-up. So Abhishek, what do you think? We have done a cystectomy, say T3, N0, M0, margins negative, suppose. Now T3A, so technically if we have not given chemotherapy, we have to technically consider chemotherapy. So giving post-chemotherapy. Now how is the follow-up of this patient? How would we?
Sir, the post-op follow-up will include 3 components, sir. One is a systemic physical examination. Second one is radiological.
Say we have done ileal conduit as per your institution. So you tell us a little bit. Say you said CBC RFT, right?
No, sir.
So you tell us what you will do in the follow-up.
Sir, follow-up will for every 3 to 6 months. For first 2 years, he will require.
So 3 months in the first 2 years, say technically.
Yes, sir. Imaging first 3 to 6 months for first 2 years. Annually 2 to 5 years, and then after that.
So at least first year, you tell us what important things to be done.
The first 1 year, he will require every 3 to 6 first 3 months, and then maybe 6 months. He will require upper tract imaging with either CT urography or MR urography, and then he will.
So at 6 months, I do a CT urogram, which is say normal. I do a CBC. I do a RFT before the CT scan, which is normal. And what else I am supposed to see?
Sir, he will require an imaging.
Whatever
of the chest.
Urine you get, is urine cytology supposed to be sent?
Yes, sir. Sent, sir. Because it was a muscle invasive, so we have done a radical cystectomy, so it will be high grade. So he will require urine cytology, sir.
So there is 4 to 6% chance of upper tract malignancy.
Yes, sir. He will require cytology, sir.
We are forgetting one, urethra as an organ.
Urethral wash cytology.
That is also recommended ideally.
Yes, urethral wash cytology.
Means they say monitoring of the urethra, it's said like. So that is the usual way is to ask a question to the patient if you have any kind of discharge or bleeding, because that is one of the symptoms. Urine no longer comes from there once you do a ileal conduit. Secondly, urethral washings can be done. If something is suspicious there, then you can do a urethroscopy. But this is a chain of events. So directly you don't do every urethroscopy at every follow-up.
Yes.
So I think that ends the follow-up. Sir, should we go to upper tract for a while?
Upper tract, yeah, and then metastatic finally.
Yeah, so before that, I think please dwell a little on these checkpoint inhibitors before you.
Yeah, so in the metastatic, it will.
In metastatic, yes. Take it forward, sir. Take the discussion forward, whatever way you would like at this point. Whether you would like to go in, finish the metastatic, or you want to do the UTUC a little in this scenario.
Okay, let's do some UTUC and then finally finish with the metastatic.
Yes. So to start the discussion, Ganesh, let us think that the same patient, we find a 2 centimeter tumor in the upper ureter at around L4. and the rest of bladder looks normal on the right side.
Yeah. So the usual presenting complaint, Abhik, it will be hematuria. Again, not much of a difference. Sir has already said cystoscopy, bladder normal. Urine cytology, let us take it as positive. We have done a sonography which says tumor, CT IVU, other side normal, this side 2 centimeters ureteral tumor. Though it doesn't appear to go external to the, or 2 centimeters is a big thing for ureter. It can be either T2 or T3 for the ureter. So what are the other questions you are interested in the CT scan in such a patient?
Sir, the local staging.
Yes, T2 or T3, I mentioned that.
Nodes.
Right. So node is one important thing. So according to the length of the level of the segment of the ureter, you might get nodes. So if it is the upper ureter, you will have to look for obviously the para-aortic. If it is the lowest, then you will have to look at the pelvic and in above the brim, then you will have to again look towards the para-aortic. So nodes. So suppose if there is N0 in this case, let us go for that. Right now N0, first scenario.
Sir, the metastatic.
To complete the metastatic workup is negative.
Now the
so with the 2 centimeter mass in the ureter, obviously, probably there will be some back pressure effect, yes, and the kidney will have a good amount of hydronephrosis. And if this patient has gradually presented or gradually this mass is increased, then the kidney will obviously show some loss of function also, a good loss of function. So what will we do?
Sir, since there can be concomitant bladder tumor which may be missed by CT, we will plan for
cystoscopy done. Sir has said it is normal.
Bladder is normal.
We'll plan for a nephroureterectomy, sir, right side.
Do you have a diagnosis?
You do a nephroureterectomy and you see a clot which was somehow sitting there. So should we do a diagnosis? Suppose if I get urine cytology positive, suppose, is it enough? Or I should do a ureteroscopy and do a brush or a cold cup biopsy? Okay. So
sir, if the CT finding is very obvious, then we can proceed, right? And if
this point has been discussed at many forums, and many people have finally come to the conclusion. And although many people think that obvious diagnosis, let's go ahead. Many people in established center like to have a tissue diagnosis because of many things. One, it is medically important when you are removing such a kidney and everything. And sometimes some people also use it like this was N0. But if it has been grossly T3, if I can see grossly T3 coming out of the ureter, there are coming up trials in upper tract which also say that neoadjuvant chemo works well.
Another important thing is why you need to do a diagnosis is taking this tumor away. If you take a T1 tumor, 1 centimeter or less than a 1 centimeter tumor, you can actually look at the kidney preserving protocol where you can actually do a local of the tumor. So I think getting the biopsy and a thing is very important in this day of life. Very obvious on imaging. Yes, we have seen patients who come up with a tuberculosis with this kind of scenario. Pathology is tuberculosis, and then it is not easy to justify at that point of time.
Okay. So suppose, yes, sir.
So now the next scenario is that there is a 2 centimeter tumor in the renal pelvis. You have done a CT scan, same thing, and cystoscopy is normal. So how would you proceed in this case? It is in the renal pelvis, 2 centimeters in size. Abhishek, I think you can take it.
Yes, sir.
2 centimeter renal pelvis tumor. Rest all is normal. Ureter is normal. Bladder is normal. Same patient. Cytology suspicious for malignancies. Same patient.
Sir, in a Kidney.
So what are the differential diagnoses possible? On a CT scan, how do you make sure that most likely it is a UTUC? What are the other differential diagnoses which can be there?
So it can be an RCC also.
Yeah. No, hold on, Abhishek.
RCC, Abhishek is asking.
Abhishek will be on.
Sir, usually the upper tract urothelial carcinomas are centrally located tumors, and whereas in RCCs are peripherally located or in the cortical origin. So
No, Abhishek,
yes,
the question was, what is your differential diagnosis? Don't describe.
Okay.
Just what is your differential diagnosis? 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. Abhik, you can take the question. What is the differential diagnosis?
It's a renal pelvic TCC or renal pelvic RCC.
No, it's not a renal pelvic RCC, but there can be certain other things like, can it be benign? See, it's only a 2 centimeter mass which is all protruding into the renal pelvis. Doesn't look like RCC. Then we are talking about. So how do you differentiate before proceeding? Because you have to get some diagnosis before taking a decision like a neoadjuvant, like a nephrouretrectomy. So what will be your approach? So I am asking about the approach.
Sir, there are some CT features, like if it is a small or homogeneous, not very much enhancing, it is more favoring towards TCC.
Okay, so would you like to go for a biopsy or a ureteroscopy in this case to make a final diagnosis and before proceeding with the treatment?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how do you stage this tumor? Can you tell us the staging of these tumors?
Sir,
Abhishek?
So based on T stage and end stage, sir. Severe esophageal connective tissue is T1. If it invades the muscularis, it's T2. And beyond muscularis into the fat or the periureteric tissue will be T3. And if it involves the perinephric fat, then it's T4. If regional lymph nodes, sir, if there are no regional lymph nodes, is N0. And N1 if there is, less than 2 centimeter single lymph node.
Okay, so it comes as a T3. Now, how will you manage it?
Sir, T3 N0 M0, sir.
Yes.
Sir, the size, sir, we can risk stratify, sir, like low risk or high risk upper tract based on that.
How do you do that?
Sir, if it is like single focus of disease less than 2 centimeter, if the urine cytology is low grade or if the URS biopsy is low grade, then it is low risk upper tract.
So when do you give neoadjuvant and when you can straight away take them for surgery? What are the recent practices or guidelines? Will you give neoadjuvant in this or not? T3. Abhishek says yes. Yeah.
Yes,
so he is right. So what do you give Abhishek as a neoadjuvant, and how many cycles?
So we can give the same MVAC regimen, sir, for 3 cycles.
So you still prefer?
So the neoadjuvant data of upper tract is generally extrapolated right now from the bladder data and somewhat help from the POUT trial, which is adjuvant, the advantage seen with adjuvant chemotherapy in upper tract urothelial carcinoma. Abhishek, now you answer. So you can use, so those who are using GC, are using gemcitabine cisplatin. So good advantage of the question what sir is asking is that we also do a GFR study of these patients, okay, differential GFRs, or you can do a DTPA in that case. It depends on sometimes on what is the obstruction to the kidneys also, the physical obstruction to the drainage. And advantage of giving chemotherapy is that we sometimes still have a big tumor with a lymph node and a kidney which is fairly functioning, so you can give the best dose of chemotherapy. And chemotherapy, as you know, in urothelial carcinomas, it acts very well. Usually it acts very well, rather than saying that it acts very well. So, sir, I think you take over.
Yeah, so now you have taken him for surgery, right? So how will you do? What is your plan? You decided on surgery, after that you were given.
Sir, as it is T3 involving the muscularis, so I think I would go for a nephrouretrectomy, sir.
How will you do? Just the broad principles. You are the surgeon. You have to do it. You are asked to do. I say you go and do nephrouretrectomy. Left side tumor, nephrouretrectomy.
Patient is positioned as a in a right lateral position, sir, with 45-degree tilt, and we usually do here lap and open both. We do, sir, radical nephrouretrectomies. So first thing we do here is patient is in the lithotomy position. We put cystoscope and ureteric catheter, 6 French is inserted, and we dissect the ureteric orifice and till we see the perivesical fat, and then the patient position is changed, and the in lap we put 3 ports just above in the left paramedian.
Don't worry about the ports.
Okay. So are you describing the plug nephrouretrectomy?
Yes, sir.
Is that common?
Usually follows, sir.
In your center?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So then you will go and mobilize the kidney, do the nephrectomy, and then just pull it. Is that what you are saying? Or what do you do after that? You have done that lower part. Now you have gone to the kidney. Okay. You have mobilized. You have done the nephrectomy, clipped vessels, and everything has been done. Now what do you do?
We mobilize the ureter till the cuff of the till we see the cuff of the bladder, sir, and then, if possible, we'll dissect the ureter intravesical part also.
No, but you have already seen the fat. To my mind, that's what I am not able to understand. Whether you are talking about a classical plug or something
we do here
modification.
plug technique only, sir. We do here
plug technique. So in plug technique, you don't need to. You have to go and mobilize the ureter all the way along till you reach the bladder, and then that part is already nicely done for you. So you just take the thing out. So now, how many days you keep the catheter?
Sir, we usually keep it for around 10 days, sir. For periurethral foliage, we keep 10 days, sir.
So now, what are the pros and cons of plug technique? Because this technique is not being done so often, I would say. So, what, to your mind, what are the, obviously when you are doing so, you must be thinking about positives. So, what are the positive things and what are the negative things?
Sir, there might be intravesical part of the ureter that might be left behind, sir. So that.
So you may not get an ideal cuff, as was described with the TCC, that you should take at least 2 centimeters, right, around the ureteric orifice. Even if there is no lower ureteric tumor, a classical nephrouretectomy. So with plug, that becomes difficult.
Yes.
Then second, what is the other disadvantage quoted? The tumor cells reimplantation, because what happens? You have opened the bladder area at all, and then you have been doing manipulation, doing the nephrectomy part. And third thing is that you have to keep a catheter for a very long time. In fact, we used to do it early, and then there were issues. Even I had to keep a catheter up to 21 days. So it actually maybe adds to the morbidity. Right. So have you seen any other technique in your center?
No, sir. We usually do the plug techniques here.
The simpler way is actually we do the nephrectomy and then give a fan and steel whichever side it is. And then you can get to the UV junction, nicely dissect that clamp and then get a proper cuff of the bladder. You're still minimally invasive. Maybe your incision is slightly longer than probably what you retrieve the kidney. You can either do a fan and steel or ILF.
Yeah, because you have to give an incision anyway to retrieve the kidney. So that is what most of us do, and it becomes easier. But of course, now with the robotic technique, we are doing it completely robotic also. But that is a different part. So, so out of the various techniques described, there are some other intussusception, this and that, lot of techniques described. The ultimate message is that what Dr. Mallikarjun says, most of us agree. I mean, it is, of course, an individual surgeon's preference, but by and large, everybody agrees what Dr. Mallikarjun has described, that you do a good nephrectomy part and then go and give a very small incision below and nicely take a good cuff of bladder, and then you can retrieve the specimen also through the same. So that is what. Now, how do you follow these patients? Now, do you have done nephrectomy?
So, any peri-op management? So that is another question, sir.
Yeah.
So the role of chemotherapy.
Any one of you can take, Abhik or Abhishek, either of you can take.
Almost at 1 o'clock. So what is the role of intravesical therapy?
Chemotherapy we give, sir, after bladder cuff, before catheter removal. Mitomycin
Before
C.
catheter removal is like 10 days?
We usually remove at 1 week, sir. So before catheter removal,
because the ODMIT-C trial, which was actually there, in that they had the duration which was from peri-op to 3 days actually. That is a small RCT. So the advantage is seen, but then it is up to 3 days. And there is no reason why 3 days, because the bladder, similarly in bladder we give post-URBT is best in the first 6 hours and up to 24 hours. But in the ODMIT-C trial, it was taken up to 3 days. So that 7 days is slightly actually delayed as per the evidence goes. So Abhishek, anything like after that, I think follow-up.
Follow-up, yes.
In follow-up, how should we follow up?
So
what all we should do?
So
say this patient comes at 3 months.
Yes, sir.
His wound and everything is healed.
He will require cystoscopy, sir, to look for any bladder recurrence. He will require imaging to look for the opposite recurrence in tumor in the opposite kidney, and he will require regular blood investigations with CBC, RFT, and
cytology, Abhishek. In this case, you'll do a cytology.
You can do cytology, yes. You can
should do.
Cytology can be used for follow-up, sir.
Yeah.
So I think that is a fair discussion. So nowadays there are at least two trials which are showing the benefit of, as I have already mentioned, that the benefit of neoadjuvant chemotherapy. So if there are larger tumors where you know that a part of kidney is involved but the remaining part is good, and there are lymph nodes also or not there lymph nodes, then sometimes it is good to, with the encouraging result of this trial, maybe in future there would be a straightforward change of management where we can give neoadjuvant therapy. It's already been used at many centers in these patients as in bladder, and then operate on the side, because that might give you the maximum protection or maximum oncologic benefit. So sir, about the metastatic thing which Anish sir wanted to discuss. Sir,
metastatic, and then we will close the discussion.
Because bladder metastatic, I actually said in 2 minutes all these things, how to do.
Yeah.
But if we have to discuss about the drugs used, so usually the chemotherapy, I mean, we have to see whether the patient is cisplatin eligible or ineligible. So that is a basic difference which we do with a with GFR study or a DTPA renal scan, along with other factors like performance status and comorbidities of the patient. And then decide if cisplatin eligible, it is always used in the first line, has the benefit of a known chemotherapy and less costly as compared to the immunotherapies. Cisplatin ineligible can either go for immunotherapy or then carboplatin gemcitabine. In immunotherapy, we use the PD-1, PD-L1 inhibitors usually. So we can use the drugs which are used or are atezolizumab, avelumab, durvalumab, and I still think pembrolizumab. So nivolumab is actually not one of the drugs technically come into the bladder. That much, I guess, for a surgeon, I don't think. Anish, I think you add something to that.
Yeah, you are right.
I mean, in exam also, I will say that I'll refer my patient then to the, with this idea, I'll refer to the only second line I mentioned already, that in case it's already a palliative setting, but if the disease comes back, then if we have already used chemotherapy, then we have less options in the chemotherapy line in the second line. So we need to go to immunotherapy. And we have used one immunotherapy, we can always go to the second immunotherapy.
Yeah, you are right. So
we need your comments, sir.
Pembrolizumab is the one drug which is available also now in India, and it is being used as a immune checkpoint inhibitor. And if you have facilities, if it is possible to do the microsatellite instability, you can get it done in some of the labs, and then you can find a suitable candidate for PEM versus an unsuitable candidate. So that,
I think, and also the PD-1, PD-L1 expression does matter in bladder. So in which, sir, you say all these things.
Yeah, so the second thing is to look at the PD-1, PD-L1 expression, and again you can choose your candidate accordingly. So I'll add another important thing that regarding even the muscle invasive tumors. Now they have gone to the level of finding out the genetic basis for the non-muscle invasive. They have another pathway, and the muscle invasive and high grades have another pathway. They are talking about the luminal forms, P53-like. So all those things, I mean, these are the recent advances and which are possible now, which are being done. If they have a P53-like picture, then this tumor is a chemo-resistant tumor. So you should know that. And in that case, you should go for an immune checkpoint inhibitor, even in a muscle-invasive setting. Metastatic we all talked about. Even in a muscle-invasive setting, if it is a luminal form pathology, like if you have done a molecular marker like P53, then they say not a good candidate. In MIBC, if they are claudin low, so claudin is another thing which has to be assessed. If they are claudin low, again we go for immune checkpoint inhibitor. So because we were talking about it, of course, in metastatic setting now everybody agrees, but the lot of studies are now coming in MIBC also, where you have to basically go for good genetic markers, biomarkers, and then decide your candidates. If it is claudin low or if it is P53 like, the immune checkpoint inhibitor will help. And then of course we have another line like the FGFR3 and some other amplifier, because FGFR3 is again coming up in a very big way in non-invasive as well as muscle invasive. So you should have some idea about it, and we should all know about it. Only then I think we can do a proper justice with the judicious manner. So anything more? So
any more questions are there, sir? Or
questions we can take? Yeah, I think.
Nothing much in the question.
I think most points are done.
MIBC question, something, but nothing much, sir.
Okay.
Nothing much. I think, sir, would you like to sum up? But I think you have summed up a lot of things at this point.
Yeah, I think we have been giving messages in between, summing up at then and there.
Yeah. I think first thing I'll thank both of you for having a great discussion.